How good is the Mazda 6e, their new electric vehicle, and also in comparison to the Tesla Model 3, is it a viable alternative which is just longer but at the same price? And how good is Mazda in EVs? Meanwhile, here also in cold German temperatures, what is the consumption, the real world range on the motorway, also when it's not in perfect conditions? We're going to find out. It's really interesting here with the Mazda 6e with Thomas Autogefühl in 4K, full screen, full length. Let's go with the front, which looks, I think, quite cool. Closed, of course, and then with a lot of lighting features here with the signature, and then leading over to the main daytime running light. I think design-wise, they really nailed it. Also with a typical Soul Red Crystal Mazda paint. This is 1,000 euros extra. But the most interesting thing is, in Germany it's sold at 45,000 euros, just as it stands here right now. So we have the very, very base version. So this vehicle has one option, and that's the paint, and that's it. And it's sold basically at the very same price, just like the Tesla Model 3 in Germany with the comparable equipment. The length here, however, is 4,92 meters, 194 inches. That is way longer than the Tesla Model 3. Then wheels, always 19-inch aero wheels. You can see it right here for better efficiency. In this case then with winter tires. And this really fluent form right here. So that makes the car also very beautiful because it's so stretched, and that's actually also good for aerodynamics. Then you can see here also playing a lot with light, three-dimensional. You can also grab in here Mazda lettering. This one here is a retractable wing. It goes up at motorway speeds, so at a little bit more than 90 kilometers an hour, like about 60 miles an hour, and then closes again at city speeds. But you can also open it manually just for show-off purposes if you want. Always rear-wheel drive. 7.6 seconds is the acceleration figure here. And we have the 66 kilowatt hour net battery. Gross figure is about 69 kilowatt hours. There is also a bigger battery available, the NMC. However, I think it's not relevant because it charges so slow. This one here is the base battery. Everyone goes for that one. It's the smaller battery. This is LFP chemistry. We will focus on that because that one has 24 minutes, 10 to 80% state of charge with a DC charging peak of 165 kilowatt. Let's see the European plug. And this is actually then quite okay. The other NMC battery would take double the time for charging, and that's why it's not really that relevant. So everyone will go for this battery here. Also, like the German customers, 90% go for this entry-level version. But that's the cool thing, that we really can keep the entry-level price, and there is actually no options list. That's so cool, and the big difference also to German manufacturers, where you pick the base price and then you end up maybe with double the price overall or something like that. And I can promise the interior here will be super interesting today. Let's check out if it does have a frunk or not. That's always very interesting. You know that some time ago we did a survey where I think like 30,000 of you took part, asking, does an electric vehicle need a frunk? And 2/3 said, yes, it does. And here we do have one. Look at that. That's interesting. I haven't seen this solution. So this is here a bag, official Mazda bag for a charging cable. Why not? And yeah, look at that. This is like a separate frunk insert, also with Mazda embossed in there. That's nice. And you see, this is a really large frunk. There's like even another small space underneath. This looks like a hole, you know, where I can also rinse something through. That is interesting. Yeah, and indeed. So we tend to sometimes forget shopping bags. So you can just take this one to the groceries and then like, you know, what you need, everything. Pull it all in there. Yeah, nice solution right here. So it does fit more than just a charging cable. And also still like a lot of dampening underneath, although there's no engine, but yeah, maybe some vibrations are being reduced by that anyways. And we of course also will drive it on the German Autobahn for you today. And what I will also do, I will drive it just like I would drive a combustion engine and then also see what consumption we can score. Driving like I do a combustion engine means sometimes a little bit higher speed, you know, German thing and so on. Now to the interior, I really like this new key fob. It's actually pretty cool. And then here when you open the vehicle, then you have these door handles coming towards you. They are then manual. I'm more a fan of like always visible open door handles, so you know that. There's no laminated glass, however. Door closing sound, It's actually quite okay. Why not? Heard better ones, heard worse ones. Then inside of the doors, so the top part is already structured and also soft touch. And here everything covered with leatherette. Yeah, this maybe could be a little bit softer for your elbow. I have to see while driving. Very cool here, good quality for the window levers. And also here, open and close. There's a 14-speaker Sony sound system in this one here, as standard, by the way. Hardback at the inside of the doors. Then here, there's the Sony sound system. And then Mazda 6e entry-level badge. Here, by the way, they actually write it without a space, officially even. And then we have some ambient light integration here and leatherette. This is rather hard, but it looks like, let's say, the very surface is a little bit soft, but it's no dampened underneath. And then the steering wheel. In the base version, also animal-free material, feels really nice, high quality and also dampened underneath. Some buttons, real buttons at the steering wheel also, for example here for toggling the camera view. And then these seats are high-grade leatherette in the base version. As I said, all standard and really nice here with the Mazda embossed in it. There are also speakers in the headrests if you like that, some ambient lighting. And then here is also very plush, very soft material quality. And I really like that. The alternative would be this one, exactly as it is in the bright styling. Probably I would also personally go for that, depending also on the exterior color. And then you would have the additional, the optional trim level, the Takumi Plus. That one would be microfiber then, but then you also get animal share, but in some parts, also on the steering wheel. And then you have an electric shade for the glass roof. Here for this one you could put in a manual shade from the accessory bin. The fixed glass roof is always standard as it is right here. Then the steering wheel up and down, in and out. Yeah, very well to control. And you can see here these stalk columns. They are from the, let's say, old Mercedes bin. Tesla has also been using that. Yeah, interesting to see them appearing here once again. And the seating comfort here indeed is very good because of the soft materials, and also here the sit bone area, like this really soft Isofix on the passenger seat, by the way. So good comfort, and I'm really amazed by how much standard equipment you get for the price you pay. Remember, 45,000 euros, and rarely do we see that without any options. Everything is included. These seats are also from base version heated and cooled. Headroom, by the way, here to the panoramic glass roof with 189, 602, no problem. The seating position is, as we know from electric sedans, still relatively high because you feel basically that the battery is underneath, and that also creates this special angle for the knees. That's why so many electric SUVs are successful, because there you don't feel this effect, you know what I mean? And I also have the effect once again in the rear. Then the dash here, top, as I said, it's not entirely soft, but it's also not hard. It's something in between, I would say. But here then is softer with the leatherette. Then here the glove box, also dampened when it falls down, at least from this area. Yeah, there's a lot of things in, yeah, there we go. Just the last step, not 15-inch screen, so very large, and the software is also very quick, and it's quicker than you would have like with the standard Mazda infotainment system or with some German competitors and so on. And good visualizations, soon more details to that. Climate unit, however, always in the screen. There are no physical dials. So this is against the Mazda, let's say, philosophy in the last decades, where they always had like a lot of physical dials and buttons and knobs. So they are all gone. There's almost nothing physical here besides gear shifting and yeah, some buttons on the steering wheel, but that's basically it. So that is what I do criticize. I would like to have real Mazda turning knobs for the climate. And the voice assistant here, I have to say, I mean, it works. However, quite often you just talk in the car and this gets activated. So I have actually now deactivated the automatic voice recognition for this sound system so that I am not annoyed by that. But the main thing is really that the build quality, also for example here in the middle console and so on, is really, really nice. In the front, inductive charging pad, and you can also easily deactivate it if you don't want inductive charging. Then just some space right next to it. Adaptive cup holders, 3 dots adaptive. This is also cool here with the ambient lighting integration. You can see it here, but also here the dashboard, you know, they can also you know, change the colors there, of course. And then you have this middle console where you can press here, or at the other side there's the same button with a lot of space underneath, also very well usable. And then there's this lower area, also pretty large. And then there's here also the USB-C is only for charging. The USB-A is charging and connecting, for example, for Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. However, you can also connect your phone wirelessly. I'm more a fan always of the cable connection, it's more stable, and then I also turn off the wireless charging because I'm more trusting in the cables, and you need that one then for an iPhone, and then like this USB-A to USB-C. That's the cable you need then. Thanks, Leah. She always has the right things for me, right? And then here, driver POV. For example, here when I press this 360 button, then we have the camera view, which is a great quality, by the way, and even more special when you are in a narrow parking situation and so on. You can then see what's going on with your wheels, both front and the rear. We filmed that for you earlier. That's also a very nice feature. And then here, digital instruments, the speed you see and consumption and so on does the job. Fine with that. You can, by the way, also here switch through the driving modes right there. Then here, for example, normal, sport and individual. Also going to comment on that while driving. We have a head-up display. I set it to snow mode, that it's blue, that you can better see it. It always appears smaller on camera than it actually also is. And then the main infotainment system, as I said, it's large, it's pretty quick when you switch through different things. I would like the physical dials. However, temperature can be like chosen like this or like this. So you have different possibilities how you want to do that, or just leave it on the auto function. And here you can also activate the heated seats, but you could also get the cool seats if you go for the climate unit here. And then, as I said, cool seats and heated seats. However, as you see right here, it's not available simultaneously. So when you turn on the cooling, the heating shuts off. When you turn on the heating, the cooling shuts off. Some vehicles offer that parallel. But here is actually not possible. Three levels you have. Here, for example, very nice visualizations, and you see also the CPU power. You can also change the color of your Mazda here on the outside, although I have set it to the real one that is on the exterior, but there you can also check out how does it look like in other colors. It looks nice and white though, right? Then you have this this copper tone is also available. I think, not sure how I can find it here. Yeah, but in this case I would then leave it on the red color. So pretty cool. Really happy with this infotainment system. It does offer a lot, but at the same time it's also, let's say, simple enough, like also the Apple CarPlay. And here we go. It's a large integration. Funnily, the Apple CarPlay is a little bit slower than the rest of the infotainment system then. That's interesting. And however, the only thing I do criticize here, when you want to deactivate the stuff here like the overspeed warning and something like that, you have to go in this menu with 2 clicks at least. There are also some hotkey menus, like when you swipe from the left there, for example, you can activate like the heated steering wheel and so on. But I'm not sure why they didn't put it in there, or why they don't offer it on the favorite buttons. And so far there's no software update planned for that. And also when you swipe from the top, you get to these settings here, but there's no like shortcut to deactivate these chimes easily. Rear seats, first of all, here also soft touch at the rear doors, so that's also good build quality. Only hardback in the lower part. Again, Sony sound system, it's actually quite decent. Tested that earlier. And then you also have the same soft quality here for the rear seats, ISOFIX in the lower part. These do fly around though, so they don't fold open. You can fold on this here, then you have these adaptive lips at least. There is no cargo position for the seats whatsoever. And you also have to unlock them from here. Now it gets really exciting. First of all, we have this even floor here, and there's also there's some space here, one USB-C charger, and there's a separate climate unit also for the rear seats. And now it gets really exciting. Oh, look at that. We can even fold the passenger seat forward from here. So we have like a chauffeur position here in the rear. So the thing is, legroom-wise, when I'm driving as a toy adult, there's enough legroom left because it's also a long car, long wheelbase, so that's good. You get a lot of space for the price you pay, and headroom-wise still fits with one A9 6x2. However, you now once again see this sedan electric vehicle thing. My feet are relatively high. We also had it in the Volvo ES90 lately, and basically in all electric sedans. The SUVs, there you would rather sit like this, and in combustion engines, the feet would be lower. So this is somewhat the limiting factor. but still, since you have a lot of space and you have the soft materials, it's still comfortable. However, yeah, I would really wish that my feet are a little bit lower, but that's, yeah, with all competitors, it's actually also then the same in this very respect. But definitely you have more space than the Tesla Model 3, clearly. Trunk or boot at 470 liters, has this fastback opening, that's quite handy. And then, yeah, it's massive, this whole piece. However, you can push it open a little bit more because I have set it to my basement garage level. So pressing it and holding it, that then sets it to this level. You can also set the percentage in the infotainment system. Pressing once, closing, double click, like on the mouse. Then it closes and also locks the vehicle. That's a quite cool thing. Then here, let's remove this massive cover. And you can check it out. The trolley fits also in underneath vertically, 1.40 meters in width. Some more space underneath, like here. Yeah, this is maybe a little bit more basic from a build quality. Also here, the cover for the 12-volt battery. This placed here in the lower left. It's actually yeah, well accessible also, should you need that. And then here, that should maybe be a little bit tighter from the wrapping, but let's check out the measuring here. 1.5 meters or 41 inches in the normal length. Then the total length is here at 1.88 meters or 74 inches, really long. That's of course then more length than you would have in the Tesla Model 3. And here the height is at 64 centimeters or 25 inches, overall well usable. The only thing, to fold the seats, you have to push in these buttons here, then go around from the rear. And it's not the most handy solution, let's take it that way, but overall good space. Driving the Mazda 6e, and we start directly with motorway handling, German Autobahn. We have a nice S combination here. Let's see how agile it is. And I mean, it's a heavy sedan, but drives quite well here as the first impression. In the normal driving mode, steering is quite light. However, you can change it. Here, pressing on the left side of the steering wheel, you can go to sport mode. Then everything is set on sportiness. Or I also made me this individual mode. So I have the power not on the strongest side, but you know, for example, coasting on standard. Like the recuperation mode, and then the power assist steering on sport, and I have a little bit more resistance in the steering. However, now let's do the acceleration in sport. Let's go from 50. It's 130 and 150. And 160. You see here 7.6 seconds is 0 to 100 kilometers an hour. I mean, they are of course stronger EVs. It's not a performance EV, but it still gives you a sufficient boost. So even here for the motorway, it's actually totally fine to get some speed in. So I can't complain about that. Even in the sport mode, the steering is still quite light. Yeah, but not as light as in the standard mode. It's maybe a matter of preference. I prefer a little bit more resistance. That's overall fine. The noise insulation is actually quite decent. I mean, you see here, that's also what I promised in the beginning, unpleasant weather. And now here about, let's do 130 kilometers an hour for a second. So here 130 kilometers an hour, like about 75, 80 miles an hour. It's like a normal, even German motorway speed, and they are still decent in the noise insulation. So it's silent also on the motorway, and as I said, it's a little bit wet here already now, so you can see that. So that's actually a good result, and together with the very comfortable seats, it actually makes a very comfortable long-term cruiser. And here I would rather drive than in my individual mode, again pressing on screen or selecting it on the left side of the steering wheel, and there I have my stronger steering. And I mean, the power style, I have it now set on like the best efficiency. You can also let it on strong because, as I said, it's not the biggest performance EV. I think it handles very well. It has enough power still, and due to that it's sitting low, I'm also looking forward to the final overall consumption, because we're doing like the motorway consumption range test now here for you to see what's the real world range then when you do stuff like I'm doing here at this moment. And let's see, doing a lane change, how that handles in that one. yeah, that's good. The suspension is actually is not really that stiff, but it's also not that soft. So you see here, when I do the lane changes, the car does not shake up much. That's fine. And still, you also don't have like the very, very stiff feeling, you know, when you're here on the motorway. So as long as the roads are nicely built and so on, I think they found a very good suspension setup overall. The only thing is, and I think I might be able to show that to you at a later stage. Of course, I did like more driving before I was recording this video. And when you are in city driving, so really, really slow, and then when you have a lot of like potholes in the city and something like that, then you have a lot of booming noise from the suspension, and driving through the potholes is extremely uncomfortable. So that is, I would say, the weak point of this vehicle, that it performs not very well driving through potholes and when you have like uneven roads and so on. You don't feel it at all when you're here on the well-built motorway. That's totally fine. It's just a thing then again when you drive through potholes and so on. Then let's check out the assisted systems. You can set it here like Tesla-alike with putting the drive lever down. And then here on the left side is also then with the active steering assist. You see, sometimes a little bit nervous from the steering. Maybe you don't even see that on the camera, but I feel that in my hands here, like you know, the small commands when it now like follows this small curve here. This is sometimes when I just like do like this and already says like the driver monitor is obstructed. So I should remove my hands here. Please turn the steering wheel gently. So then I also have to give the car a feedback that I'm still here. So that is not ideal, you know, as for the assistance systems perform. Also, what I had earlier is that sometimes the lane keeping assist does some strange interventions. So that's also not that ideal. Then let's see about, here, for example, again, I have to say once again that I'm here. Not that ideal. You can also deactivate some stuff in here to smart drive. However, then it's always 2-click. Also here for the overspeed warning, you have to go in the menu. There is no hotkey, as I said earlier. So deactivating these is, I would say, not that ideal as well. Then I also have the blind spot monitor. Here I have a yellow symbol here in the side mirror. It's always good to have that. And these side mirrors, by the way, they are really, really wide. So that makes good visibility to the rear, definitely. However, you have to think about it when you're driving like in a parking lot and very narrow situations in the city. These mirrors are really wide. So be careful that you don't get caught somewhere with these. And the first consumption test here on the motorway when we drive like this, sometimes a little bit quicker, sometimes a little bit traffic, then around 100, 120 and so on. So we're then between 17 and 18 kilowatt hours on 100 kilometers. That's some 3.6 miles per kilowatt hour. So that would mean a real build range of about 380 kilometers, maybe a little bit more, or 240 miles, something like this. And now some high-speed motorway. Let's check it out. Now it's also dry again here on the road, and maybe we can also get to almost top speed, 160, 170, and still reasonably silent, and car is calm enough. Just like these now hard on the brakes. Just as I said, like these very tiny nuances on the road. These ones you do feel a lot. But I really have to say, also when you're driving really fast with this vehicle, still a good travel companion, so to speak. And I also have to say, as I mentioned earlier, I'm driving this car now basically as I would drive a combustion engine, because I didn't want to do like I'm just hugging behind a truck on the right lane thing. And let's get off the motorway a little bit. Some city driving. Let's see about the comfort right there. So I really got to say, it does get the German Autobahn Thomas stamp, because it's silent, it's comfortable in seating, The suspension is also for the motorway comfortable. And I just talked about the range and efficiency on the motorway. There are more efficient EVs out there, yes, but you also get along. Let's take it that way, and it also recharges quick enough here, at least with this smaller LFP battery, which everyone will go for actually. And also here, for example, when standing at a traffic light, you feel that although there's a lot of glass around us here, it's still silent and comfortable enough. Of course, it's here for smaller European taste, also a long vehicle. Then again, that's good for efficiency, good for having a lot of space in here. And I also like driving larger vehicles, honestly. That's maybe also a matter of preference here. And of course, when you have the electric vehicles, you always have good acceleration from get-go. So when you hear traffic light turns to green, you're super quick on speed again if you want to sneak in somewhere and so on. And the only limitations are, as I said earlier, when you have some potholes, you do feel that notably. And another thing which you feel on the motorway, here maybe you also hear that somewhat booming noise then. So here when you are in the city and you are on the brake, it's super sensitive. On the motorway you don't feel that. But here it's kind of like there's so much reaction. Where you feel it most is really in parking in and out. So when you're going back and forth, when you slide in the brake, poof, it hammers the brake in there just with slightly pressing it. So they maybe need to make it a little bit less sensitive when driving the city, and you have to learn it. And that's also the reason here I have set this is like the wiper hotkey I did set here on the right side, left side. I set for the energy recuperation, and here usually I only drive with low energy recuperation, but here I do actually drive with a lot of recuperation, or at least middle recuperation, because I feel that's here more comfortable than actually using the brakes. Told you many positive things about this vehicle and they stay positive. However, I have to say one very negative thing. They need to fix this. Look at this. I'm driving it now at night and the whole windshield is just, there's so much moist, and we have the AC running. And we've been driving now today and yesterday for really hours and hours and hours and hours, alone today 5-6 hours. And this happens maybe once in 1 hour. So this just happens, So we're driving all the time, everything is fine, and then suddenly I can't see because everything is foggy from the inside. And then, I don't know, maybe the sensor picks it up, and then suddenly it's gone again. And I don't know how that is and why that is. And we checked, everything is properly set in the AC. And the second thing with the AC, you see it right here, we have set it on 26.5, that's Celsius, so that's, more like in the 90s in Fahrenheit. And that's of course not and my arms are still cold. So the heating is the calibration is totally off. So two things I really need to fix, the moist sensor, it's totally, nuts. And also the temperature calibration. So this needs to be fixed. And here now, I've been driving like this for maybe 5 minutes now. And then from one to the other second, in 3 seconds, it's gone again, and you're fine for the next 3 hours. And then at some point it comes back again. That's really weird. And at some point we even just opened the windows because we couldn't do anything, and even if we do maybe AC Max, let's see about that, if this helps anything. Yeah, and even that, it should be quicker to release that, right? And I also, I don't really get it. So this is something they need to fix ASAP. And now the consumption here with motorway driving long term, and I drove it like I would drive a combustion engine on the same route. And then we scored some 21 kilowatt hours on 100 kilometers, so 3 miles per kilowatt hour. So that would be then for the motorway long term, also with good speed. Real world range case of 315 kilometers or around 200 miles. And we also did a concise charging test. The battery was warm with a lot of motorway driving, and then it directly started at 165 kilowatt pretty quickly actually, so that's good. And from 20% state of charge to 85%, we took about 27 minutes. And the long-term consumption over the whole running span of this vehicle here, so a couple of thousand kilometers, which this one already has on clock, is 19 kilowatt hours on 1 kilometer, 3.3 miles per kilowatt hour. That would mean a real world range for this small LFP battery of about 350 kilometers or 220 miles. It's not too much, it's not the most efficient EV out there. However, is a good price-performance ratio still if you think about what price do you pay and how long the car is and how much space it has on the inside, and the build quality on the inside is also very good. Maybe not my favorite is like suspension, booming noise and how the suspension reacts and so on. There are better cars for that, but then again you have to consider the price, and overall I think is still a good price-performance ratio. How do they achieve it? It's a cooperation with Chang'an Automotive, Chinese manufacturer. They built a joint venture. This one has also basically a Chang'an, so-called Deepal brand version on the Chinese market. And the same will also happen with the SUV. So we will soon also present to you a new Mazda electric SUV, which already aired as EZ60 on the Chinese market. We'll have a different naming than on the European market, and we'll soon show you everything about that you need to know. So far, we have more content about this video if you're interested in that one, or maybe then compare the competitor, the Tesla Model 3.